It's the WALT Pod. Welcome to Luton Town. Shandon Baptiste phone in. It's good to be back. And with me tonight is my co-host Mark. How are you getting on tonight, Mark?
Yeah, I'm good after a nice, easy glide through for England as well. So, not stressed at all. Pretty happy about the news earlier too.
Well, there might be a bit of England chat tonight. But before we start, as you mentioned, there is some really important news to discuss, and that's it's not England. It's actually Danny Hylton on trial at Charlton. What do you make of that?
Oh, getting the old band back together, absolutely amazing. It's incredible. I love that he's a trialist, as if Nathan Jones doesn't already got him there. Trialist, doesn't know him
I
well
think
enough.
Luke Berry set him up as
He
well for the
did,
goal.
yeah. And it was a nice little tap in, which incensed the Northampton fans, of which he's not scored a single goal for. Loved it.
It's just it's fine. To be honest, I think League One, with all respect to Danny Hylton, I think League One might be a stretch too far for him. Um, Fair play to him though.
Yeah.
It's only Nathan Jones that would give him another chance, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think most of us think that, or thought he was going straight into kind of coaching. I wouldn't have been surprised to see him back at Luton in some way or another. I think we've seen him in Luton every week anyway at the games, um, but yeah, it's great to see him still playing, and hopefully he knocks out a few goals for Charlton as well. It's great to see him and Bez are back, and they're obviously great mates as well off the pitch, aren't they? So yeah, good times.
It is indeed. But what we are here to talk about, Luton Town have made their first signing of the summer. It's good that we've sure fans have been a bit impatient. So why haven't we moved sooner? But to be honest, I feel the signing of Shandon Baptiste on a free for a reported 3-year contract with a year extension, I think that is absolutely sublime business for a technically very good box to box midfielder. He can play on the left as well. Um, I can't say I saw too much of him at Brentford. He didn't set the world alight at Brentford. He was obviously very liked amongst the fan base, but Brentford had a very settled midfield. The predominant football that I saw him play was for Oxford, and he impressed me. For a kid, I wasn't surprised when him and Tarek Fosu were snapped up by Brentford. I think it was reported that Shandon Baptiste part of that deal was what 2.5 mil. That was his valuation. I think that's a lot of money for a teenager. And was he a teenager? He might have been 21. Yeah, he was 21 when he moved to Brentford. I I, I feel he fits the frame of Luton Town signings, whereby we pick up players that are sort of down on their luck. What do you think about that?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you say he's not played too much for Brentford, and you're right with injuries and everything else. But 50 odd appearances in the Premier League, I don't know about you, but I'd have snapped your hand off for that this time last season, let alone in the Championship. To have that depth in midfield or experience rather of somebody that's played that many games at that level is great. And like you, I really mostly when I'd seen him play, it was for Oxford, taking on players and scoring some really exciting goals and setting chances up. He's strong as well. He's going to play that kind of box to box. I think he sort of, I don't know whether he'll take on the Pelly role, probably, or if it's more like that kind of Berry slash Pelly kind of role in midfield. But yeah, really exciting player. Obviously, if we keep him fit, because that's been the big problem, hasn't it, for Brentford over the last couple of seasons, is keeping him fit. And from what I've seen on social media, Brentford fans are raving about him, particularly technically. It's just his fitness levels that mean that he's just not got the game time. And like you said, they're already strong midfield that they've had for the last couple of seasons as well. Um, yeah, it's really exciting, and it's great to see Luton, take players like that you always associate with top end Championship clubs, and clearly there are other teams in for him as well. And the fact that he's come to us when I assume the teams that were in for him are likely to be those going to be pushing there or thereabouts in the Championship, shows everything about, where we're at and what our kind of aim is going to be over the next season. So yeah, no, I'm chuffed with it. And fingers crossed he stays fit.
Yeah, well, obviously that's a big part for him as well,
Mm.
wanting to stay fit. He mentioned that in his in his welcome interview that he's had injuries. Interestingly, they're not lower half injuries. Predominantly, he's had four dislocated shoulders. So, in a way, he hasn't lost any of that explosive nature, the type of thing that we saw at Oxford, where he would just blast past someone. Um, that is important. That is sort of the Pelly angle in that sense. And obviously he's not partial to hitting a banger as well. He scored some good goals for Oxford that grabbed the attention higher up the league, and that was Oxford in League One as well. And he was obviously playing in League One from a young age. So he scored 5 goals for Oxford, and just to retread old ground, they were absolute bangers. I put um, a little compilation of him when he was, to welcome him to the club, and wow, they were absolute sensational shots. Whether it started with him taking the ball past a few players, I'm very happy to have him, and not to sound, not I don't know the correct term, not to be mean to Pelly Ruddock, but I feel he is a Pelly Ruddock and Panzu who is better at football. Is that mean to say? Like, I love Pelly, but he's not technically the greatest footballer. He's powerful, he's athletic, he can get up and down the pitch. He can, his tackling's not the greatest. His passing is not the greatest. I just feel Shandon might be a bit more technical than Pelly Ruddock. But we need the numbers in midfield as well.
Yeah, totally. I mean, obviously we've lost Lokonga and Barkley at the moment. We need the numbers, and I don't think it's too harsh to say. I mean, it feels like sacrilege saying anything against Pelly, and he's been brilliant for us. And I don't think he's had the time in the Premier League to really bed in like he has in the other leagues as well. To be fair, so it's always hard to know where Pelly's ceiling is. I get what you're saying, and sometimes he makes completely crazy decisions that you just think, why has he done it? But at other times, he brings out such class as well. It's hard to know really what Pelly's technical ability is. I'll be perfectly honest. It's really difficult to be able to tell what that guy's ceiling is, and I wouldn't put it past him with longer in the Prem to prove everybody wrong. But as things stand, I think that's a fair point. And yeah, I mean, he provides what we need and what we've lost in Lokonga and Barkley as well, because we need those technical players in midfield if we want to play the way that I think we all suspect Edwards is going to play this season, which is a far more front-footed attacking team. We're going to need those type of players.
So do you reckon we sign another midfielder, or can you see him paired up
Mm.
with Marv Nakamba in the middle?
I mean, yeah, I can see him paired up with Marvin Nakamba in the middle. I wouldn't be surprised if we did sign someone else. In fact, I think we probably would sign at least one more midfielder, whether it's a starter or not. I think like I said, we've lost a bit of depth, and if anything, apart from all the lessons last season's taught us, is that squads get quite thin quite quickly, and that's we all remember what the championships are like and how relentless it is. And you say it's a couple of injuries. Marv obviously out for the vast majority of last season, and we're in real trouble. So yeah, I'd like to think we'd sign at least a few. I mean, most of the players we've been linked with, apart from Baptiste, are forward players, right, wingers and forwards. But I would imagine we'll have at least one more central midfielder in there too.
A bit of depth. You say we've lost a bit of depth. We've
It's a
lost
bit.
Lokonga, Barkley, Berry.
Yeah, a
Berry
bit.
as an impact sub is absolutely phenomenal. I'm really sad that we lost Luke Berry, because I feel he'd be a very useful squad member to have.
Yeah, but I reckon that must be on him, right? Because I agree. I think all of us agree that out of the ones in that long list of players that have gone at the end of the season, Berry's the one that we're almost gutted about. That's got to be his decision that wants to play more football, surely, because I think Edwards clearly rated him. He put him in in the Prem. Granted, when we didn't have anyone else, but I think he played a good role there. But yeah, exactly. We've lost depth, a fair bit of depth, and that's without anyone else going that we know about as well. So yeah, I think. Yeah, I think we're going to be playing far more through the thirds, and therefore the midfield is going to be more important than it was under Jones, where, let's be honest, it went from defence to full back up the wing, across, Adebayo, Morris, goal, etc. So yeah, we're going to need those players in the middle of the pitch a bit more. And I'm with you. I was gutted when Bury left, but it's got to be his decision, surely.
Yeah, well, it was mentioned that the club had a 12-month option, but
Mm.
I think they mutually agreed not to trigger it because they just wanted him to go with their blessing and say, you go, Luke. You're 30 now. You go play some football, and I hope he does get the football he deserves at Charlton. He should be the first name on that team sheet. Frankly, I think League One is a step too far down for him personally.
Yeah, I think. Well, if it wasn't Jones, a bit like slightly different with Hilton, because as you said, I think League One's probably his level now. But if it wasn't Jones in charge of Charlton, he'd be going to a Championship club, right? Surely.
Yeah. He would, yeah. And to clarify, I didn't say League One was Danny Hylton's level. I don't think League Two is even Danny Hylton's level right now. Um, I feel he probably just turned out as like he turned up in the trial today just as a favor
I think
to Nathan Jones.
the bar at the back of F blocks is Danny Hilton's level, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's roughly where he
pretty,
is.
pretty much. Well, to be honest, Danny Hylton watches games up on the gantry with Simon Pitts now.
Yeah,
See him every week. Every week
every
he's
week. Yeah,
Yeah, without fail, rain or shine, Danny Hylton's at Luton Town.
he's the new Glenn Ray until Glenn Ray
Yeah,
comes.
and congrats to Glenn Ray because I think he's just re-upped with Worthing
Yeah.
potentially. Yeah, fair play to Ray because he had a troublesome foot injury, and I'm glad he's got back on the horse. He's back to playing some football. He's not even 30 yet, and what a player Glenn Ray was. Absolutely
Mm.
love Glenn. But getting back to talking about Shandon and our depth in midfield, so as it stands with Shandon, this is purely for central midfield. Shandon Baptiste, Jordan Clark, Pelly Roddick-Panzu, Marvelous Nakamba, Alan Campbell, Louis Watson, and Axel Peisold. And I think Zach Nelson can also play in the middle. If I've forgotten anyone, the people in the comments, please feel free to jump in. You can request to speak as well. Have your say about Shandon Baptiste, your thoughts, your feelings. But Mark, what in terms of that midfield depth? Obviously, Shandon goes in as a first team regular. I would say he's got to be,
Surely.
yeah, he has to be like he has that
Mm.
ability. Um, he could be like Alfie Doughty in the sense that he's coming with a point to prove. He hasn't played a lot of football. He's played a lot more football than Alfie Doughty did at Stoke City.
Yeah.
Um, do you see a future for Alan Campbell in that squad? Louis Watson?
Do you know what? I'd love to see a future for Alan Campbell. I think, like most of us, we love him, but it's clear that Edwards doesn't fancy him. Let's be fair. I mean, um, the players that we had at our mercy at the start of last season, and he went on loan to Millwall. I know Millwall fans weren't particularly pleased with him. He didn't play many games for um, the manager that's just come back in. I can't see it. I really can't. I like him. I really like Campbell, and of course, anyone who scores against the Scummers will always be in Luton folklore forever. And I really think he offers a lot of that kind of tenacious midfielder. But no, I can't see it. I really can't. I think he'll be gone if we can find him a club personally. Um, so yeah, I think again, just in terms of depth, we're gonna have to find some players. I don't know how much we need a player like Campbell with the way that we're going to play as well. We got Marv obviously shielding the back out 4-3, whoever it's going to be, or whatever system he's going to play. And then it's going to be more of the kind of creative, wide passing players that we want. And Alan Campbell, tenacious midfielder, great midfielder, but probably can't spray a pass in the same way that you would argue Baptiste and of course. people like Clark can. So yeah, I don't know about you. I just can't see it.
Yeah, well, I like a lot of fans. I absolutely love Jordan. I do love Jordan Clark.
Mm,
I absolutely love Alan Campbell.
mm,
Um, I'm not one of those that is looking at his technical abilities. Obviously, Rob Edwards is. I think Alan Campbell is technical enough for us. Like, look at his goal against West Brom, where the technique on that hit where he slams it in from outside the box. Um, you got to have technique for that, and surely a coach can work with a player to to sort of develop that side of his game a little bit more. I feel it was really harsh to ship him out on
mm,
loan. He's made like 80 or so appearances for us. Obviously he is more of a Nathan Jones type player where we were playing more direct, and then he feeds on the second balls, the scraps, tries to win the turnover, lay it off to someone else, and keep the attack going. But I genuinely believe it could be an error letting Alan Campbell go. Let's not forget, he was one of the most highly rated prospects in
mm.
Scotland. Obviously, that doesn't say much because I could, put on my boots at the age of 36, go up to Scotland and make it into their national team right now. But he was
Oh,
I
that is
qualified through my grandma. I qualified for Scotland through my grandma. Um, but
Yeah,
he
get the
was
Hearts fans back in there. When's that debate going to be roaring again after Ollie Wenger? It's coming
a
back. But I get everything you're saying. I agree with it. But look, he's not fancied though, is it? It's not really. I mean, clearly Rob doesn't fancy him. He didn't fancy him towards the end of the season. We got promoted, and obviously he shipped him out on loan the moment that we got promoted to the Premier League. It just, while I don't disagree with what you're saying, I think he's a great player and he's a really useful squad player to have. It feels like Edwards has already made up his mind about that one. That's what my point more than anything. I think Clark, on the other hand, though, I mean, clearly Clark, fancied by Rob Edwards and a great player for us. Technically as well. I think he plays more of that style that Edwards wants. I see Clark starting every week at the moment. Well, certainly at the moment, we're not got enough midfielders, but I can't see a world in which he doesn't play most games.
Yeah, well, I agree with you in the sense that Rob Edwards has already made his mind up about Alan Campbell. I feel he's really harsh not shipping him out on loan, uh, and and not giving him a chance in the Premier League squad, because I feel like he would have been a very good depth option. I also do. I am slightly concerned about the fact that we haven't protected his value. The loan to Millwall has damaged him. He most likely does. He most likely is in the final year of his contract right now. He would have signed a 3-year deal. He's probably in the triggered extension. Well, he joined same time as Fred Onyedinma. Fred Onyedinma didn't get an extension. Fred just left
Mm,
this offseason. So that
yeah.
means Campbell would be in his 12-month extension period. And potentially that means we're losing a player that I think we signed him at 22. He'd be 25, 26 at the end of his contract. And he's barely kicked a ball in a season. So, there's no value there. But obviously, we know we're not the greatest at selling players anyway. Like, look at all the players that helped us get up the leagues. We let them leave on a free. Like, look, I didn't want this space to sort of rumble down into me having my grievances about Luton Town and how we can't sell players very well. Like, hopefully this summer, our players are under contract, they're covered. So if we do sell, we sell at the right price. But that I'll leave it at that in terms of selling players. I do feel though, Alan Campbell probably. I'd love to see him play for Luton, but at the same time, I do want him to get on with his career and, try and rebuild his career so he can be the player that he was anticipated to be when he joined Luton. I still remember Mick Harford on that
Mm.
Zoom chat, I think, where he was like, "This is a very exciting player. He's going to be a Kevin Nichols type player. He's going to be a fan favorite." And unfortunately, he did become a fan favorite, but it just didn't pan out for him at the end of the day at Luton Town, and I am sad about that. But I guess just moving back on to Shandon Baptiste. So we had word from Mike from the Brentford podcast, and this made me very happy reading this quote. So I'm quoting from Mike, by the way. "I absolutely love Shandon, one of the most underrated players in our side. Shame it didn't work out for him at Brentford. I think it was purely because our midfield was set in stone, but when he played, he was ace. A great ball carrier, has a rocket on both feet, and is very technical." So that sort of treads back over what we were both saying from what we've seen of him at Oxford. Unfortunately, he does say there our midfield was set in stone. So obviously with Thomas Frank, he's Danish, and one thing you notice from Denmark's midfield, from Brentford's midfield, they're all Danish, aren't they?
Yeah, the same thing. I was about to say same difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's exciting. It clearly kind of fills some of the void. We're all gutted, obviously, to lose people like Barkley and Lokonga. No one's surprised, I'm assuming. Um, but it's great we get a player like that kind of can fill some of that void, at least that made us so effective last season. And clearly that's the way that Rob wants to play, and have someone not just with that kind of passing capability like we've been talking about, but that pace to get out the pitch as well. It's going to be really, really exciting. And Brentford play a really exciting brand of football, and they've obviously had to adapt when they went into the Premier League. They've had to play more direct when they're in the Premier League compared to what they were like when they were in the Championship. But I still think they play a really exciting brand of football, and they fucking smash us every time they play us as well. So, and he's already scored for Luton, right? So it's already
He's
a good
already opened
start
his
back
account.
against us.
Right. Anyway, let's get some other speakers on, shall we? So, Christian, you've been waiting very patiently. We'll come to you briefly, and then we'll go to Simon and then Mike. So, Mike, Simon, please wait patiently. We will get to you, gents. Christian, unmute yourself. How are you getting on this afternoon for you?
Not bad. Obviously very excited that we're finally getting into the transfer business and getting some players in. I was looking at Baptiste and kind of just like how he is as a player, just to see like what we had coming in. And I got to say, I definitely think that he is a good start for our transfer business this summer. He's certainly a solid midfielder, and especially for a club like us in the championship, with him having 55 appearances in the Premier League. But I also think that he is also maybe a little bit of a statement signing, so to speak. Obviously, Luton Town known for being very smart in the transfer market, and this seems like a very, very smart signing. And I think it's kind of a sign that the club is going to look to get back into the Premier League here in the next 2 to 3 years, probably. Obviously, he's here for 3 years, like you said. So if we can achieve that goal, he would, help lead us back, and he'd also be there. I do have to say, though, I think we're going to probably need at least one more midfielder. I think with Baptiste, him being a box-to-box midfielder, he is not as defensively minded as Lokonga was, but not as attacking minded as Barkley was. He only has 3 goals in his entire career. So I think if we can get like another midfielder, one that is attack minded, to start with, I think our midfield will be pretty solid. Obviously, you mentioned a few of the other midfielder prospects we have in the squad, but yeah, I mean, I like the signing. I think it's a quality signing, and I just hope that it is a sign of things to come.
Yeah, you make a good point. You made some very good points there, Christian. I certainly do agree that we need another midfielder as well. I do believe that it is a sign of the intention of the club. They are, I don't want to say desperate to get promoted. If they were desperate to get promoted, they'd be throwing the checkbook at it, wouldn't they? How much do you foresee, Christian, that Luton could spend this summer?
See, that's a tough question for me because obviously I haven't been around as long as a lot of you have when it comes to Luton Town. And I know Luton Town's only spent probably 30 million in transfer fees in like the last 30 years or something. So I definitely don't think it's going to be another large summer with the 20 million they spent last summer. But I definitely could see still probably between 5 and 8 million worth of signings still to come this summer. Obviously, there's some really good players out there on freeze, which they cost us absolutely nothing. So even with that 5 to 8 million, I think we're going to spend, we'll probably have still 4 or 5 come in, and you could think probably 2 or 3 of them will be on freeze. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, there is some very savvy business to be done in the free market. Thank you very much, Christian. Really appreciate you dropping on, mate. Right. Shall we go to Simon? Hashtag in Tom Lockyer we trust. How are you getting on this evening, Si?
I'm doing well, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, really good, really good. You know, England won. It was quite a painful game to watch, wasn't it?
Listen, it's obvious how critical I've been of England this tournament.
I've not noticed.
You're
I've not
Gareth
noticed.
Southgate's biggest fan, right?
Clearly, Gareth Southgate's my number one guy, you know. But honestly, let's get on to the Baptiste transfer because I think it's a really smart bit of business for us, really. I know everyone is worried about his injury record, and it reminds me of when we signed Mengi, to be fair, because there were the same shouts with Mengi when we signed him. Do you remember? I don't know if Matt's in here.
Yeah, one person in particular. I don't see him in the space.
I don't know if he's
I saw
here.
him pop up, didn't he? Yeah, from Matt, where he was. What was the hashtag he used? Oh my god,
I can't remember.
Sorry, hashtag Hammy. I don't know. Someone's got to dig up that tweet. It was so funny.
I remember it. I had
If
to bring
someone
it
can
up.
go through Massaquino's tweets and just type in Ted and Mengi and find what that hashtag was, because it was hilarious.
I remember when we were driving down. I went down to the Everton game with Matt. I drove down with him, and we were talking about that after the game. He was like, "Oh, well, he was bringing up this and that," and I was like, "Yeah, that sounds about right."
Yeah, he sat next to me in a game, and I was telling everyone around us, it's like, this guy said Ted and Mengi was going to be rubbish. He said he's going to be injury prone.
I remember it. But listen, the thing is, he'll slot in straight to where Lukonga's been playing for me. He's going to go straight into that slot. We managed to keep Mengi fit. We managed to keep Barkley fit, and there were question marks over both. Even though we suffered a lot of injuries last season, it was so intense. Like the tempo, the pressing, everything was so tense that the championship has its own set of challenges. But you do have that extra yard for a mistake in that league compared to the Premier League. And I think that Baptiste is going to be fine. I think he's going to be absolutely fine. And I think we're going to play to his strengths and he'll suit us.
Yeah, you're forgetting about Alfie Doughty as well. Like, I've already mentioned him on this phone, and how Stoke fans were saying, "Oh, yeah, he's a sick note, isn't he?" Even Charlton fans were saying he's a sick note. Although, ironically, we did have an injury crisis, but we have, last season with the injury crisis, we did keep certain players who are known as, quote unquote, sick notes. And having a history of injury issues, we did keep them on the straight and narrow. We kept them fit, didn't we?
Indeed. And it's going to be, I think it'll be a little bit easier to manage these things in the championship as well. I know it's a longer season in the championship. You do have some hard games you've got to go to, especially when you hit January. It's a long slog, right? But I do think we'll be prepared. I heard what Christian said, where he thinks we'll spend between 5 and 8. I think it'll be closer to 20, personally.
What
I
crack
think
you smoking, mate?
I think it'll be closer
Are you
to 20.
mad?
I think we might surprise some people.
Certainly surprised
There's
me.
money there. There's money there. As you said, some of that could be taken up with wages on some deals with some free players. But honestly, I think we might be surprised with someone we bring in for a fee we might not be as used to.
Mate, you're an
Do you know what? Sorry,
absolute
jump in.
lunatic. You're an absolute lunatic if you think Luton Town are dropping 20 mil this
Ollie,
obviously
across
Ollie,
the squad,
I
across
just
the
paid
entire
5 mil
squad. Have
net.
you seen how light our midfield is?
Yeah,
We need a
we're
right
not
wing
dropping
back,
20 mil
not on one
players.
player.
In total, we're not dropping 20 mil on players.
Up to. It could be between 10, possibly. I'm looking on the upper scale of things. We could afford it. We have a lot of gaps we need to fill. We're not. Why are we overlooking that? We have a light midfield. We have, in some ways, a bit of a light defense. Kabore's got to be replaced. We don't know where Doughty's going to land.
You got Hashioka. What more do you want, mate?
Mate, I'm not here to argue. I'm just putting my perspective out there.
Can I just
reckon that we may be surprised.
Because I think there's not a bad point. We've not been, as a club, in a position where we can spend money within that league towards the top end for a long, long time. And it is really hard to balance it. Look, in the Prem, we were never going to spend loads of money because we're going to spend it on the stadium, etc. Right? We've got all of this money that we've got now from the Premier League and parachute payments. It's really hard to know what a good budget looks like. So yeah, all right, we might not spend 20 mil, but actually, how much are we expecting? What is the expectancy of fans? Because that's quite a tough one, I think, from that point of view, to say where we should be.
I personally don't think it's beyond the realms for people to expect 10 to 20 million spent, especially now, especially with what goes on around us. And that would still be sensible in the grand scheme of football transfers.
In my opinion, the only way we spend 20 million
The
only way we spend up to 20 million on transfers is if we sell for 25 to 30 million pounds of players.
So Adebayo and Doughty, what if they go? That could start creeping towards that figure. 2 big spots to replace.
Well, I mean, until like Elijah or Alfie or Kaminsky goes, I cannot see us spending more than £3 million on any individual player. There aren't many gaps in our squad to plug. As I mentioned, we got Hashioka already sitting, waiting at right wing back. Chidozie Ogbene can play there as well. If we're playing a very attacking formation.
Listen, Ollie, I get what you're saying. I get you being realistic based on our history. I get it. I do. But I want a challenge in the Championship next season. I know you do too. And I think that we are now at the point where it's not going to be strange to spend 10 to 20 million in a transfer window if we want to go straight back up, if we want to do these things for the long term. I don't think that's silly numbers thrown out, considering the stuff you see thrown about on. Look at that Archie Gray transfer that just happened, mate.
Yeah, but Leeds hype players. He's been hyped by the mainstream media. His dad or his grandpa that was Eddie Gray that played for Leeds was one of the.
There's also another example. Those 2 players at Hull that Ipswich are apparently going in for a double deal. That's exceeding 30 to 40 million itself, and they didn't even get the playoffs.
Yeah,
Ipswich are trying to do Forest, though, to be fair. They've already spent 25 mil on one player.
Yeah, on Amari Hutchinson, who's never kicked a ball in the Premier League.
It's insane. It's insane. It is mad. But again, I'm not saying we're going to spend 10 million on Sheep or something stupid like that. We all know that's nonsense.
Well, COD fans are saying 20 mil on Sheep.
Yeah, we saw some mad figures coming out, but obviously it was never going to happen. But, you get 5 players in, 2-3 mil each. It does add up pretty quickly, and we do have that wiggle room.
I don't see us needing 5 players, really.
We lost Lukonga. So are you happy going into the season with Baptiste, Panzu, Clark in the middle?
Well,
don't forget
as Mark just pointed out, we've replaced Lukonga with Baptiste. Marv is like a new signing,
we hope.
He's obviously injured. He's come back. He's going to be vital for us. We saw how good he is in the Championship. He's levels above the Championship.
Of course he is. We know how good he is. We know how good Marv is. And he was a significant loss last season. Like, we missed him a lot. In times where we could have brought Marv on just to, seal off the games a bit, where we conceded silly goals later in games, could have helped a lot. But I would like to see us have some depth this season, like some serious depth, really, because we paid for it so badly last year.
Yeah. Indeed, we did, and it was injuries that caused us to, fall at that final hurdle. You could just see, in the final stretch of games, final 8 to 10 games, players were gassed. They were
Big
absolutely
time.
good. Yeah, they really were. Look, it'll be interesting to see our transfer business.
Indeed. And I'm
It
sure we'll
will be.
talk about it on WhatsApp all the time.
Yeah, we we will indeed, and obviously every time there is a signing, we'll do another space where everyone
We'll
can
keep
phone in
counting
with
up
their
the
opinion.
fees.
I like what do you rate Baptiste out of 10 in terms
I
of
think he
signing?
has the potential to be a really, really good signing. He's got lots of Premier League experience behind him now, 26 years old, coming into his absolute prime. Keep the man fit, and who knows how high his ceiling could be with us, because I think he suits us.
Yeah, I think so too. It's a match. It's a match made in heaven, really. As we mentioned so many times, he fits that sort of demographic of player that's down that luck, has a point to prove. I think it's going to work for us and him. It's going to be mutualistic. It really will be. Simon, thank you so much for joining us tonight,
Speak to you
mate.
soon, mate.
Yeah, I'll catch you soon. And right, we got Mike. Mike, how you getting on tonight, mate?
Good evening, everybody. How's everybody going?
Yeah, we're good, mate. Very
Good.
good.
Good. Long time listener, first time caller. Yeah. I think kind of going on there, I kind of just want to go straight in on Baptiste, really. I think when this sort of deal was being floated a few days ago, for me, it just seemed like you were saying already, a bit of a match made in heaven, really. It strikes me as a deal we probably would have made if we'd stayed up. He seems like someone we probably would have been a bit underwhelmed by him. I think in the Premier League if we had kept him, but I think for me personally, I think he's a absolutely perfect match for the team, and it's exactly the sort of player we need. I don't know if you kind of feel the same regarding we probably would have signed him anyway, but he seems like somebody who we were just waiting for the contract to die down on.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I do think that makes a lot of sense. I see Mark's nodding his head at me. Yeah, Mark, you agree with that?
I mean, I think I said earlier that we'd have been happy with it this time last season. I completely agree with what Mike said. I think he must have been on the radar. We'd have been happy with it in the Premier League. Definitely, it's clearly something we were looking to do as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
I think we probably, as I say, if we had stayed up, we probably would have been sitting around moaning a bit. It was like, he's only played however many games. Was it like 10 or 11 games this past season? But like like the interview he did today, he seems to have a great attitude. He seems to, as I say, he's played 50 times, I think, in the Premier League. He's played, multiple, I think at least 100 times or in League One. He's played good. I think he's played out 20 times in the Championship. I mean, he's just he's exactly what we need in that position. Regarding Nakamba, though, I do agree with I can't remember who it was saying it earlier that for me depth is a issue in the club, because I believe obviously Nakamba, before he signed, there was always a question mark over his fitness. I know there was one of my Villa supporting friends basically said that's a bit of a risk. It'll be good if he comes off, but already he's had a year out and we've only had him for a year and a half. So I think for me, Nakamba is still a question mark for me, and I don't. If he does keep playing well, he is like going to be like a new signing, but I wouldn't take him for granted.
How do you see our midfield lining up next season?
I think obviously I think Baptiste has to be a major part of that. I would be satisfied if Clark has a more prominent role this season. I think when he was on the pitch, I feel he did. There were games where he was possibly a bit outclassed, but I think he definitely had a positive influence on the team when he was on the pitch. I still think there needs to be one or two other players to come in. We've got 23 players in the squad at the moment. We assume one or two will still go. I don't think Campbell's the solution. There's going to be lots of people on the free market, and if there is a big windfall to come, then I think we could possibly have a chance to be a bit more bold, go a little bit left field, get somebody interesting from abroad, or
Someone like
try and
Pepple.
tempt somebody. Sorry,
Someone like Pepple.
Pepple, yeah, Pepple.
Zambrano.
See if Marcus Heikkinen still got his boots, something like that.
Yeah, he could do a job in midfield. We signed him originally to be a midfielder, then he just turned out to be a really class centre back.
I love Marcus Heikkinen.
He was such a good player.
Sorry,
He was silky smooth.
Absolutely
What
love that
player.
man.
Yeah, sorry, Mike. I feel we derailed your train of thought by talking about Arabin Pepple. But talking about Arabin Pepple,
That's absolutely fine. I mean, I wasn't going to suggest any names really.
But okay, well, don't
obviously there is-
suggest names. So who do you reckon? Well, who do you think definitely will be leaving Luton? And
I think
won't be
Campbell's.
featuring?
Sorry.
Yeah, well, who won't be featuring? So you think Campbell will be one of those?
I think Campbell's gone definitely. I think I would like to think there is a increased role for Pelly, but equally I'm not convinced that Rob thinks he's his man. I fear for him doing another 2 years or so at Luton, and nobody wants to be the one to sort of kill the family dog, really, do they?
When you put it like that, yeah, you're right. You're right. It's it's just such a shame because I felt that performance against Forest last season for Pelly was him announcing himself to the Premier League. That was his moment to say, I am good enough. I can step up. Because before then it had just been cameos where he just wasn't good enough, or he made an error. Like thinking back to that, although there were a lot of errors for the Brighton game, first game of the season, but his error was probably amongst one of the worst I've seen on a football pitch. I don't know who does keepy uppies with their back to goal in your own 6-yard box. It's not ideal. You don't think like going back down to the Championship would be a chance for Pelly to re-establish himself in the first team squad?
I think he can definitely re-establish himself, but depending on how we do this season, if we were to go back up, we'd be asking the same questions that we already know the answer to, and we know he can't really play at that level. I love Pelly Radicampanzu, but if he thinks he's going to have a role any more than a bit part in the Premier League, and we've obviously taken that for granted that we are going up, but I don't see any future for him beyond either a bit part in a higher level or sort of coming off the bench in the Championship or starting against the lower level teams in the league. Unfortunately, he's knocking on 30, maybe even past 30 at this point. It's an emotion. You have to think with your brain rather than your heart, really, with Radicampanzu.
Sorry, I completely blacked out after you said that Luton Town are definitely going up.
Well, I don't think they are. I don't think they are going up.
No.
But it is definite expectations, though, isn't it? I mean, Pelly's a great player when you're expecting to get 6th at best, but when you're aiming for top 2, and we are aiming for top 2, right? I mean, the club is, even if we're not maybe bookies' favourite top 2, the club's gonna be aiming for the automatic promotion places. Is he good enough to fit into that side regularly?
I don't think he is, personally. As I said, it's heart versus head, really. We would love him to be knocking in, doing a Ross Barkley-esque performance every week, but it's beyond his capabilities.
Yeah, he's not that type of player at all.
No.
Yeah, it is a shame when you do put it like that. I just feel it's quite vital that Pelly does stay around the squad because he's so good for morale. You see all the behind the scenes stuff. You see when so not outtakes, but you see the match press conferences, obviously because the brace is so tiny, and every single press conference is disrupted by Pelly being Pelly. He's been in the club for so long, he is just part of the furniture now. But as you say, no one wants to be the one to put down the family dog. You know, I completely understand that. It's a really tough one. I just sort of assumed that Pelly would stay with us. He obviously signed new terms at the beginning of last season.
I don't think he is going this year at all. I don't think he will be going, but it's just a question for the future, really, with that.
It is indeed. I just think he's such a good squad player to have, in my opinion. I feel he does have more performances like that one in Forest in his the one at Kenilworth Road against Forest in his locker. I just hope he's revved up, ready to go for the season, really. And Mike, so you say that we're not guaranteed to go up. It's funny that you say that because when we went down in just ahead of the 92-93 season, I've heard stories about I'm too young for that. I only went to my first game in 95. We're all too young, I'd imagine.
Yeah,
pretty much everyone here. So when we went ahead against Leicester in the 92-93 season, first game of the season, and I've heard fans invaded the pitch because they pretty much decided, and they all felt that Luton Town were going straight back up to what is now known as the Premier League. Anyway, they lost that game 2-1. But ahead of this season, Mike, what are your predictions for the season? Do you reckon playoffs are a go?
I think playoffs would be a massive success. Automatic, I think, with the team we have, I think automatics is a stretch. Obviously, we do have the whole siege mentality, us versus them, but it doesn't work against teams that, you know, Luton's not a big team, but there are teams which are not as big as Luton in this league. I think playoffs would be a very good success, but I think if we finished out of the playoffs, it wouldn't be the end of the world. I think we need to start tempering our expectations as Luton Town fans. We've not. This will be the first season in 10, 11 years where we've not improved in our position, and you know it can't be up every season. And I don't think a year at this level will. I don't think in 2 years at this level will kill us as a club. I think it, especially if we have the commitment of Edwards for another. Well, we seemingly, is it 4 years he signed?
Yeah, long term deal, 4 years.
Yeah. If we've got Edwards for 4 years, I don't think 2 years getting the team together, making sure we're milking the most out of that parachute payment money is going to be the end of us at all. I think if we make the playoffs, fantastic. If we don't go up from the playoffs, you know, it's always a bit of a lottery, isn't it? As we saw last season, it was a lottery for us, and we managed to get through it. So I don't know. For me, I don't think we will go up this year. That's just me. I'd love to be wrong.
I agree with you. I don't know what Mark thinks, but from my opinion, I wouldn't mind 2 or 3 more seasons in the Championship. For me, it's a much more enjoyable league than the Premier League. The games were not enjoyable in the Premier League at all. It's I always say it. The Championship's one of the last bastions of proper football. Sure, there are still teams that take the piss with how much they spend and, you know, literally skirting on the edge of catastrophe with their wage bills and the players that they sign. And there are some absolute jokes in the league like Bristol City and Stoke City. But I feel it's still a fantastic league, isn't it, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both of you, really. I do think, though, that you know, the proof will be in the pudding in terms of who stays at the club as well. I mean, obviously at the end of the transfer window, if players like Doughty and Elijah are staying, then it says something about the ambition of where the club is. I think even in our wildest dreams under Edwards and Jones previously, we would have aimed for playoffs at best, right, as a club. But I think that that's probably shifted, even if our expectations haven't. I think that what Mike said about how we play as one of the bigger teams in the Championship now, for me, is my biggest worry. You know, that siege mentality has seen us through the divisions all the way, really, since we got promoted from League Two. And we've always since then struggled being favourites and having more of the ball. So for me, that's going to be the big indicator. How do we cope in games at home when teams sit back with a low block against us, which will happen for the first time in the Championship for God knows how long against us. And I think that's going to be the real test for us. But yeah, I agree. In terms of the league, in terms of how much fun the Championship is compared to the Premier League, well, absolutely. You don't get the tourists that you get in the Premier League. It's a far more fun league, and of course, you know, we get to beat teams like QPR and Watford, and we can't do that in the Premier League because, you know, those teams aren't going to see that league for a long, long time. So, yeah. So it's basically agree.
Yeah, like you made a great point there, about the point about teams coming to Luton and sitting back. I am of the opinion, I hope that doesn't happen. I hope teams do come along and think, it's Luton, you know, they got lucky in the Premier League and they've got no Ross Barkley now. They just got regular players. So I do hope that, you know, that doesn't happen and that we can cut through teams that come and attack us. Obviously, I can see that. I can see teams sitting back because naturally that happens when teams come and play away from home. I just hope it doesn't happen when we go away and play at other teams, because that would just be absolutely horrendous, wouldn't it? Mike, thank you very much for your thoughts and appreciate that. Right. Do you think it's probably about time that we should wrap this up? Because we've been going on for almost an hour. And
yeah, no one wants to listen to us talking.
No, they don't.
I mean,
well, you know, as I said, we're going to be doing this for every new signing. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have, you'll be able to check out the video on our YouTube. Please like and subscribe, share. We really appreciate you all checking out our, you know, our new and improved YouTube. All the podcasts are going to be videoed, and there are going to be so many more podcasts. So in addition to the new release of Hatter or Low, which we're going to be getting former players on, some great guests we have coming up. We also have the Luton Ladies Lowdown, where we'll be taking a look exclusively at the Luton Ladies team. We'll have a new player on pretty much every week. Access like you've never seen before. We'll be doing opposition view match previews. We'll be doing these post-match phone-ins with myself and Mark, and we'll be doing the main podcast as well. Thank you all for tuning in.